Well, hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenniger, and welcome back to the Eddie Network podcast. My guest today is Chandima Dutton, a friend of mine from England who is a conversationalist. I'm gonna call you that because you've got this major part of your life that's focused on that. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have a good time today, and then you're gonna find something that's gonna be beneficial to you. So thank you for being here, Chandima. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, and the things and maybe how this thing about conversation came to be important to you.
Okay. So, as you said, I live in England. I live in the middle of England in a little village in Warwickshire, which for people who know London and people who know Birmingham, England, it's kind of halfway. And my current role, I suppose, is as head of people at a software company. But that's not all I do. I have a few things. And one of the things is that I co-founded and director of a non-profit called the Better Conversations Foundation. And I co-founded that with my colleague and friend, Simon Coles, who runs a software company. And that foundation grew out of a need to help people, especially in work situations, help them understand the basics of good communication, good conversations. Because if you think about it, and the way I think about it is, conversations are at the heart of all our relationships. They're the kind of smallest unit, the quanta of relationships. So if you can start with that and start simply and know how to converse with somebody to get a good outcome for both of you, that starts building relationships, that starts building collaboration, cooperation, teamwork, and then you can do great things with that. So we've gone for the very simple, essential skills that we all need.
Well, I think it's fantastic. I've been doing consulting for a long time, and the thing which I have identified as the number one problem of most organizations is communication, and at the heart of communication is the ability to have a decent conversation. And what you're doing is really great. So help us give us some principles of what a good conversation looks like.
Well, a good conversation actually starts before the conversation.
Oh, good.
Okay. And a good conversation is, and this is largely what we focus on in the trainings that we give. A good conversation starts with awareness of yourself and what's going on for you. So we call that state. So what you're thinking or feeling at any moment. And it's impossible not to have thoughts or feelings, and those thoughts or feelings can range massively. And we treat a really simple model to help people with that. We teach it. It's called a traffic light model, and it's literally a traffic light with three colors: red, yellow or amber, and green. And we just teach people to tune into their thoughts and feelings. And red means stop, break. It means you might really be in a situation where it's not great to have a conversation. Your needs might not be being met. Your physical needs might not be met. You might feel threatened. All those kind of things. So stop.
Yeah.
Don't try and have a conversation in that kind of state. Green means you're good to go. All your needs are met. You're not worried about something threatening you. You're not fearful. Often people will say it's a state of flow or calm or ease. And in the middle, there's yellow or amber, which is you're not sure. You're maybe a bit cautious. You're not sure what's going on. And your brain's telling you, slow down, proceed with caution. that kind of thing. So we tell people to tune into that and tune into what's happening in their minds and also their bodies, because obviously our body's giving us signals all the time. And to try and manage that state before you have a conversation, particularly if it's an important conversation to you. And we teach that model, and we teach it, and everyone gets it because people know what traffic lights are and they can relate to that. And we've taught it to, professionals, we've taught it to coaches, therapists. I've taught it to my 11-year-old daughter. She gets it.
I'm not surprised.
So that's one of the main principles behind that. And we teach people, how to tune into that. And then also thinking about assumptions that you're making. We all carry around, we form beliefs, we have assumptions about things. It's natural. Sometimes those assumptions are right, and we make assumptions because that's how we just kind of move about the world and survive in the world. Sometimes they're completely correct. Sometimes they're not. So we teach people to be aware of the assumptions they make and to check in with questions. If you ask the right kind of questions, you can really check your assumptions. And then the other really important thing before a conversation is to understand the context of that conversation. What's happened before? What's state is part of your psychological context, for example. What are you thinking, what are you feeling? There's a social context always to a conversation because you're having it with at least one other person. There might be a cultural context that you don't know about that other person, and and so on. There's a physical environment, there's the time of year, there's the time of day, all sorts of things around context that you need to be aware of for yourself and aware of what the other person might be experiencing as well.
Does some of this,
so those are some of the fundamentals.
Does some of this self-awareness include actually how I engage conversation? And let me be specific or give you an example, because I've been in situations where people thought they were in conversation, but what they were really doing was just waiting to speak. They're mulling through, okay, what am I going to say next? And so they're not really listening to the other person. So listening has an important place. Is listening that bridge between that self-awareness and context awareness? Is that a way to put that?
I think listening helps you understand, and the right kind of listening as well. There's different types of listening, but it helps you understand what the other person's really saying. If you're really key, you tune in to kind of people and what they're saying and ask questions. That's important. And we also have a kind of some listening skills in that, in the trainings we give. So listening is really important. And I would say probably the skill in having good conversations. And I don't know if you're aware of Nancy Klein's work. She writes about the thinking environment and time to think. That's influenced me certainly very heavily. And that listening to really understand and not interrupt, like you're doing now, actually, Ed. It's really important to make people feel heard and noticed and valued.
Yeah, as you're saying all this, all these moments in my life come flooding back through my mind, and I want to give you one of these that just is such a classic example of the opposite of what you're talking about. So I go to this leadership day, community leadership day, and the first person who's speaking is an economic development director for the community, and there are these 5 people who don't let him speak because they don't like the way his organization is handling economic development. And so they're bang, 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 bang. And at the 10 minutes to the hour, he's supposed to finish. He says, I'm sorry, I can't finish my presentation. I have to go. And he leaves. And I'm the next person up. And so I've been watching all of this unfolding, and I'll could conflate the whole thing. So what ended up happening is that I call this the Gang of Five, and I go to the executive director of this group, and I say, I want to debrief what we've gone through, and what we're debriefing is the arrogance of the Gang of Five to think that their position is more important than anyone else's, and so we're debriefing it, and there are 45 people there, so 40 people then get the opportunity to respond to the Gang of Five, and it's really remarkable. It was a remarkable hour. We did this for an hour where they saw the importance of listening and of respect for the other person, because what I was talking about was community building, and it was the perfect setup for that, and it saved the day in all. And one of the Gang of Five ended up hiring me, and did a lot of work for him for about 6 years, until his arrogance got, well, I won't say that, but he let me go without telling me he's letting me go. So this is so interesting, Chandima, so interesting to me, because I see that this self-awareness piece really needs to be about how one finds the confidence to be quiet and to listen, and not afraid that they're not going to have something to say. Am I right there?
I think so. And for me, listening and having learned how to listen well over the years, listening is actually really quite liberating. If you're not listening in order to respond, you're listening just because you're interested and curious and you want to see what comes next. And so it's liberating, but also it's, you talked about your Gang of Five, and they didn't want to let that person speak. And I'm assuming they wanted to change that person's mind in some way, wanted him to behave something a bit differently. But listening actually can influence people much more. And that's what I've learned over the years, because I used to work in a big corporate environment, and I found when I was kind of doing projects with people who I hadn't worked with before, just having those kind of one-to-one conversations, didn't have to be long, half an hour. If I just listened to what they were saying and let them tell me what they wanted me to know, there was something special that happened afterwards. They felt appreciated. They felt I understood them. And they were ever so helpful afterwards, and they would, it really, really did help me do what I needed to do. Just to take that time to listen to somebody.
So what was it that brought you into this whole world of being interested in conversation and listening? And that's what... So,
yeah, as I said, I used to work in a corporate environment in the energy industry, and I left 6 years ago. And I had an interest in creative problem solving and, creative thinking and critical thinking and all those kind of things. And I'd been doing some facilitation within the company because I really enjoyed working with people and helping them, problem solve and come up with strategies and so on. I decided to do a master's in innovation, creativity and leadership. And I've gone through classic academic route, to get to where I was. And it was the kind of first vocational course that I did. And so I had a complete career change. So I left, I did the master's full time. I set up my own company, worked in consultancy, realized that when I was helping leaders design workshops, and facilitate them, that it wasn't just about designing and running workshops. It was about helping that leader navigate those, because often I get, oh, we just run a workshop and it will be fine, the team will get it, and we'll get what we need, we'll progress this project. And often that didn't happen because there was so much going on underneath the surface, right? Otherwise they wouldn't need a facilitator for those kind of things. And I thought, actually, I need to coach. I need to support this leader in what they're doing, and coach and challenge them a little bit sometimes, in how they're engaging with people. And so that led me to coaching, and kind of, I had some basic coaching skills, but it led me to actually look to improve my coaching skills. And I came across an approach called clean language, which was developed by a psychotherapist called David Grove, who unfortunately is no longer with us. But he did a lot of work. He was a therapist to, I think, various people who had a lot of trauma, including veterans who had PTSD. And he devised this technique where he'd talk to them through their metaphors. So he was basically trying to get information about their experiences through metaphor, because he noticed if you talk in a kind of metaphorical language, it is easier for people who have been through trauma and those kind of experiences, and you don't re-traumatize people. They can somehow talk about metaphors without it really kind of being re-traumatized. And so that technique, is used now in coaching in all sorts of fields. So that's what led me to this work, and understanding how people talk, how they communicate, how to ask really good questions that are free from your own assumptions and biases, and how to really encourage people and be curious when you're asking those questions. And in the course of training in clean language, I met Simon Coles, who runs a software company, and he'd been involved with that community for many, many years. And he actually founded his software company and started to build the culture within that, using those techniques. He's quite an unusual person. He's really he really wants to make sure that the culture of the company is conducive to good communication, because in software, as in quite a few industries now, it's all about knowledge work. It's all about how you use your mind and your brain. If you haven't got the culture that supports that, and have the conversations that support that, and support mental health, then you're not allowing people to be at their best. So it's really, really quite fundamental for a knowledge-based role.
Wow.
So I met Simon. I met him online in practice groups. Knew him for about 2 years, and then he suggested I come and work with him to help. He'd already started piloting and running some courses called Better Conversations, and I about 18 months ago, I started working with him. It was only meant to be a temporary thing. I'm now permanent. I'm now helping run the foundation. And yeah, we're taking this, and we're really, we think we can scale this and spread this. It's important, and we think it has an impact, a good impact on people.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, and I see this as indicative of a change that's been happening over the last just a few years, where people are much more interested in how they connect with people, how they relate to people, than they were 4 or 5 years ago. And I think there was all these patterns that they had been kind of locked into very kind of mechanistic, structural patterns that didn't allow them to do the things that you and is it Simon? Did you say his name is?
Simon, yeah.
Yeah, you and Simon are doing, and what you're doing is cutting edge. I mean, and many of the people that are on here, who have been guests here, are doing cutting edge work, because what they're doing is they're finding ways for people to communicate together in a kind of a non-abstract way, meaning here's the formula. We're going to follow. No, we're not following a formula. We're going to train ourselves to listen and to respond. And
Yeah.
and that's a new thing. And I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you that is such a new thing. It is going to have this long-term effect upon the world that is very exciting.
We hope so. You know, that there are so many challenges that we face,
Yeah.
in each of our respective countries, globally, we can't affect, all of those directly, but we can do this one small thing. Me and Simon, we can help people have better conversations,
Yeah.
and that will lead to other things, and we're just trying to do our little bit.
You impact the people you have a direct relationship with. I think that's, let me put that in a box and say, remember this, everyone. You impact the people that you impact are the people you have a direct relationship with. It's not the people that you're hitting likes on Facebook or whatever you're doing. That's not what we're talking about. This is about actual having conversation. So I suggested to you before we went on the air that we demonstrate this. Are you up for this?
Go on then.
Okay. So what I've suggested to Chandima is that we have a conversation where she initiates towards me, and we're acting as if we don't know each other. We've known each other, but we've never had a conversation before today. I mean, person one-to-one. So this is still rather new. So let's say we're at a business after hours event, and you walk up to me. How would you introduce yourself, and how does that conversation start about how we get to meet each other?
Obviously, I would say hi. I'm Chandima. I might notice something about you. I may ask you about that. I might just say, "Hey, what did you think of that business presentation?" I might say, "What were you doing before you came to this?" Really, really small. Easy to answer questions.
Let's role play this. So you've asked,
yeah, sure.
What did I think? Well, and let's just put this into the context of the Gang of Five. Well, I was really disturbed by the way those people treated the speaker, and I felt like they didn't give him a chance to speak. I felt like they weren't listening. What did you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you. When you say you weren't listening, was there anything else about that not listening?
Well, I think the other part of it was that it was the effect it had on the whole audience, because they were distracted, and they were not happy with what was going on, but they didn't feel the freedom to stand up and say, "Shut up," or "Stop this. We want to hear what he has to say." So there's this conflicted energy that was going on in the room, and I probably should have stood up and said, "Hey, let him speak," that sort of thing.
And so what was happening for you when there was this conflicted energy in the room? What was happening for you?
Well, I was wondering of the Gang of Five, why they were saying this. I understood the words they were saying, but why would they do it? Why would they express that in the way that they did? That was what was really curious to me, because I felt like they were not aware of the context in which they were in. And so it felt like it was just kind of ego being kind of thrown out upon the whole audience, and it was so unhealthy.
Mm. And thinking about all of that, what what do you know now?
What do I know now?
Mm.
Well, I know that I will listen better. I probably would say something. I might stand up and say, I'd like to hear what this man has to say. Can we wait until the Q&A to voice our opinions? You know, I would I would lower the energy in the room so everybody could relax and then get back into a mode of listening to the speaker. I mean, I think that's probably what someone, possibly me, should have done. But I was also the next speaker. So, I was also thinking about, well, this is a hard group. How am I going to deal with this? And then I said, I realized we just need to face up to what has transpired, because that's what community building is. Because I was going to talk about community building. So this is what we need to talk about. When communities break up, when they end up in conflict like this, and you have a third to a half of the group kind of emotionally exiting, and they're saying, if I had known this was going to go on, I wouldn't have come, then you already know that something of a deep conflict is happening. So how do you repair that? That's what's going through my mind. How do we reclaim the space so that we can be respectful and listen to one another?
And what difference does that make, knowing all of that?
It doesn't make any difference unless you act on it. That's what I know. And that's what I did. I acted on it. And I don't, I mean, I'm not stroking my ego for that, because it was a risk. It was a huge risk for me to do that, to say, we're going to debrief what has transpired over the last hour. And it was a risk. It was the first great risk of my consulting career. I mean, this is 2 years into having started this. So I'd never done anything like this. But it comes back to what you were saying earlier. My self-awareness was that I knew how to talk to people. I already knew that. I already had those skills. And I wanted everyone in that room to feel like they had the freedom and the space and the permission to say whatever they wanted to say.
And when they have that freedom, then what happens?
Magic. People say
magic.
Yeah, well, they say, I want to work with you. Let's get together. Let's talk some more. And what if we were in the time after the event, and you have come up to me and said, "What are you thinking about this?" Then I would respond to you and say, "So what do you do?" And I would be searching for how you and I can maybe collaborate together on something, because I'm seeing in you a similar sense of presence about what had transpired, and so I want to know you better. And I want to get together. So I'm gonna schedule coffee with you or something like that, or a Zoom call. That's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna build a relationship.
Build a relationship. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Because I want you to feel like, see, this is my motivation. I want you to feel like at any time, day or night, you could call me. You have a question, and Ed is the guy that I need to talk to about this. And in that moment, you have the freedom, pick up your phone and hit my call button, and you would call me. And even if it's 3:00 in the morning here where I live, I would take your call and we would have that conversation. Because what I see happening is that these conversations are not just for the conversation itself. It leads to the connection that we have together, and it's the basis of discovering our shared values. It's the basis for how we learn how to respect one another and learn how to trust one another. And and I see this is probably what happened with you and Simon. You had these conversations, and it came to a point where we need to work together.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah,
that
it was very much like that. Yeah.
at that point, you have a relationship where there's mutual accountability and mutual affirmation. There's a mutuality that comes from that. That's why I see what you're doing is really, really important, because it's this initiating activity that causes relationships to be what we desire them to be.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes, we do think there's an impact there, and there does seem to be. I mean, the feedback we're getting, even from very experienced coaches and therapists, is it's impactful, and we get people coming back. One of the things we've designed is you can come on the course as many times as you like. You can do repeat certain things, and they come back. So we think yes, it's very impactful.
So obviously you feel fulfilled by this?
Yeah, very much so. We're both at the point where I've had a kind of established career. Simon's got an established company. We don't need to do this. We want to do this.
Ooh, that's such a big, there's such a big difference there.
Yes. Yes.
Why is this something you need to do?
Yeah, we think the world needs it, but we want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think we wouldn't, I've been working with Simon formally, officially for about 18 months now. And I think there's been at times at which it's been really hard to keep going. We're in a startup situation, and it's not easy, sometimes you think, does the world really want this? Are we just putting our time and energy into something that's never going to fly? But I think there is a kind of mutual, like you were saying, kind of shared identity, shared values. Our values are very much aligned on this. They're not exactly the same, but there's so much overlap that we can, we can partner really well, and keep each other's spirits up, I suppose, and celebrate when things go well.
So how do you, I'm going to use two different words, and they're different, but they kind of, well, they don't mean the same thing, but they're aligned. How do you market this? And then how do you create a network of people who are doing this? Because the network will promote it, but the marketing is the kind of where you got to start to bring people in to acquaint them with this.
Yeah, that is, if we knew that, that is, the marketing is difficult, because what we're doing is actually, we're in a sense, we're disrupting the traditional training model. And we are making all the course materials freely available under Creative Commons.
Wow.
So there's a website, you can download all the flight plans, the handbook. We're documenting as much as we can. That will be freely available to people under that Creative Commons license. Because with the internet and with the way we work, now, information's everywhere. Information isn't the thing, so why not give it away free? Why not, if we truly believe this is important for the world, then we should allow people to take that and use it. So that's one thing. So marketing that is very difficult because people don't quite understand that, because usually you have to pay for everything. We have created, we're creating a community. We can, growing that community. We have a faculty of around 15, 20 people now who deliver the courses on our behalf. What we're hoping to do, we don't want to be trainers. That's not our thing. We're not really intending to run a training company. What we want to do is empower people to go out and deliver this themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the materials are available. Mm-hmm. But what we want to do is support them so when they learn how to deliver, they can do that to a really good standard, and they do it in a team. So we form little delivery teams. We have a couple of facilitators, and we have a producer to look after Zoom. And, we try and create that model of, small teams located around the world, taking this out into their particular communities, their sectors, their organizations. And we're really excited because people are coming to us and saying, we'd love to give this course in Dutch or Swedish or Ukrainian, even we had. And we can say, yeah, we can support you. We can help, you can translate it. We can support all of that. And here, please go spread it. Use it.
So what countries do you have people using this material?
So we have, let's see, we have a course on, a session on today. We have a facilitator who's in Malaysia, co-facilitating with somebody in Sweden. Wow. And the production person is in the UK. So we have kind of quite global delivery teams and attendees. So we have a few people in the States. We have people in various countries in Europe, like Sweden, the Netherlands, Germany, obviously the UK, because that's where we're based. As I said, Malaysia. So we're trying to grow this. We're trying to support. The only real constraint to this is the time zone, because we can't be awake all day and all night. So that's the constraint, trying to find people in various parts of the world that can deliver this and bring that to their local region.
There are a lot of people and a lot of groups out there offering programs and training in communication and conversation and human interaction within a business context. There's a lot of that out there. It's grown significantly over the last 30 years, and they're all operating within a traditional approach. But it sounds like you all are doing something different. Yeah. And the question is, how do you distinguish yourself from the traditional human development training methodology? What is it that you're doing that's different than that makes this more attractive and more dynamic for a company?
I think we're interested in second, third order effects. So that's why I say we're not a training company. We don't want to be a training company. We want to support people. And that includes internal coaches, internal learning and development, HR people. Because we can't scale to the needs of a company. And also it's expensive, right? If you're paying for a course for every single person in your company, that gets really expensive. It's not necessarily that effective. So we'd rather train people who are internal to a company to be able to deliver this, and then they got, they're employed by that company anyway, so that, that's just about managing their time. The other thing we're doing is, because our sister company is a software company, and this is where I'm going to is not just a course, it's a platform and a business model. We can develop software that helps that delivery. So we've just written an app which helps with the scheduling. So one thing that we think is unusual is we've broken the link between, if you like, trainer availability and having to do a scheduled course at a certain time. So you can do that, and you can schedule 5 sessions and have run it the same week every time, attend it. But you can also, if a meeting comes up or something happens that you can't attend, you can just jump onto another course. And you can do things a little bit out of order. If you want to repeat something, you can do that. So I think we've kind of broken the pattern for a traditional course as well, which again makes it easier to deploy at scale. Because if you imagine you've got 1,000 people to train, say, and not everyone's going to be able to turn up at the time that they are meant to turn up. Things happen, life happens. You want to be able to get them on the session somehow.
Right.
We've standardized the course. I mean, that's a fairly traditional thing to do in training, but the standardization and the flexibility of the scheduling means that you can train that 1,000 people and know that they're going to get a similar level and a similar experience. It won't be exactly the same, but they're going to learn the same kind of things. And next year, when you recruit, 100 more people, you can put them through the course again and they'll get a similar experience. That standardization, repeatability, flexibility, I think when you bring them all together, that's quite an unusual offering, because I have not come across a course where you can be that flexible.
And I'm going to ask you a really big question. I'm just going to ask this big question. It would appear to me that what you all are trying to do has the ultimate effect or impact of forcing the institutional structure of a business to change to being not so much flatter, but one where more people have a sense of ownership, more people feel a sense of contribution, and in my terminology, that they feel much more free to take personal initiative to create impact that makes a difference, that matters. That they become persons of impact or leaders of impact within the company, and that changes the way the structure functions.
I think ultimately it'd be nice to think that that's what's going to happen, but I think the old models of leadership and not necessarily fit for today's world. We have AI. There's more automation generally. So all those things that can be programmed and done by AI, they're going to be done by AI. That's gone. That horse is already bolted. What's left? You still need people to care about people.
Yeah.
You still need people to talk to each other, do the things that AI can't possibly do. There's still place for creativity and innovation and all those things. We have a massive climate crisis. There's still place for people to find solutions to that locally. So in order to do that, we need people to be able to talk to each other and be aware of the differences they have and also what they have in common. And if you can weave that through communities and organizations, maybe you have hope, of addressing some of these issues. But yes, I think a traditional top-down training where everyone just goes on a training course, maybe out off-site, out of the office, tick the box. My term for that is sheep dip. because it's like you herd
Oh yeah, yeah.
a load of sheep through a dip and they come out the other side.
Better.
And I've been on plenty of training like that.
Yeah.
I think that model needs to change because, like I said, people are busy. You need to fit in with whatever is going on in the business. You need the courses to be relevant. One thing we pride ourselves on is you can come off as the training and go and apply it immediately, because we really have worked very hard on simplifying it and making it accessible to people. There's not a lot of theory taught. There's no theory actually in the live sessions. There's, if you want the theory, I could write many articles on the theory, but that's not what people want.
Right.
So there is theory and there's science behind it, but we don't need to teach it. We just need people to know how to have good conversations. So yeah, you can walk off a session, you can attend a session, and you can immediately apply it. And in fact, that's what people have told us they do. Oh, I went home and I thought about this and I realized that's why my conversations with my partner aren't going so well. The penny dropped. I really understood why that happened. So I'm going to use this particular kind of skill and I'm going to think about that conversation and make sure it's in the right environment and so on. That's what we want. And what we found as well is, another part of the thinking is you might lead with this in organizations, in work.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also give this to friends and family, because these are the kind of skills that if you can support them in the system around that person, they're likely to stick.
Yeah.
They're likely to improve their conversations at home and, in their friendship groups, which hopefully will improve their general outlook and mental health and well-being. Yeah. And that will come back into work,
Yeah.
So there's a lot to this that we've been thinking about over the last few years.
Well, it's certainly exciting. I think I need to have Simon on the podcast.
I would recommend you have Simon on the podcast.
You
Yes.
can introduce us, and
I will.
I'd love to have this conversation with him. And I've enjoyed this immensely, and I'm really glad for that. And we'll put all the information you would like to share in the show notes so that people know how to find you and find this program. And
that'd be great.
Change their life, change their business, and change their family, change their community, change everything about how they live, and simply by learning to listen and have a good conversation. So that's exciting. So thank you, Chandima, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And and thank you everyone for watching this episode of the Eddie Network Podcast. Please subscribe and hit the like button, and if you feel so inclined, offer a comment or a question, and we'll love to respond to you. So, and until next time, hope you are well and do well. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.